Lots of movement this week in the race to helm Canada's official opposition. Kellie Leitch had her first official campaign event, also joining the fray. Her partner in that infamous barbaric practices snitch line idea from the last election. Chris Alexander declared his candidacy on Wednesday. So did Aaron O'Toole, who made his announcement on Friday. Lisa Raitt resigned as Conservative finance critic. A sign to many she'll be running. Tony Clement says he's done because he couldn't raise enough cash to continue. But even with Clement's withdrawal, the list of declared candidates has hit double digits. And that doesn't include Raitt, nor the handful of others widely expected to add their names soon. And we're back with round 3 of the Sunday Scrum. Freelance journalist Susan Riley and the Globe and Mail's John Ibbitson are in Ottawa. Martin Patriquin from Maclean's joins us from Montreal. All right, let's start with Kellie Leitch. She's been in the news most recently with her idea to screen immigrants for so-called anti-Canadian values. It came up when she spoke to reporters during her launch event yesterday.
Only 1 of 5 individuals is receiving a face-to-face interview by an immigration officer. Canadians have been very clear with me. They want us to focus on our shared Canadian values and on our Canadian identity. And that's in direct contrast to the Prime Minister of Canada, who stated that, we have no core identity. And my approach is in direct contrast to the other individuals I'm running against in this race who are talking about Canadian values but aren't willing to do something. And so I'm going to stay focused on this because it's an important issue for Canadians. In fact, the majority of Canadians across the country are interested in screening for Canadian values.
All right, Marty, let me begin with you this time. What do you think of Leitch making core identity a core campaign issue?
I've been outraged about, on this show and others many times before about what she's saying, and it's not really worth going over, but I will. We've tried this sort of thing before. The identity issue has been tried before. Her own government tried it. The Parti Québécois tried it. It might very well help drum up the base and get people all rah-rah behind you, but it hasn't worked in Canada in the past. Her business about 1 in 5, she was a minister in the Harper government. She was, a fairly well-known minister in the Harper government. Where was she? If she had such a problem with this 1 in 5 thing, why wasn't she doing something about it? This is a pure electoral play, and the overwhelming cynicism sort of teeming from her campaign is almost too much to bear.
Yeah, it's got lots of. All she has to do right now, Susan, I'll address this to you. She has to just get the support of the Conservative Party. That's her first step, and she thinks this is the way to do it.
Well, I think she's wrong, and I totally agree with everything Marty said. I think this is kind of a disgusting tactic, to tell you the truth. But beyond that, she has no natural political appeal. She's not an appealing, warm, or charismatic person. She just doesn't have what it takes, I think, to win this. Do you want me to handicap the race right now and tell you who will win and save us a lot of pointless arguing? It's got to be Andrew Scheer. He comes from Saskatchewan. He's fluently bilingual. He's the right demographic. He's young, and he's quite a likable guy. He's also got, I think, 17 MPs from the caucus behind him. I think he's going to emerge as the winner, perhaps in a close showdown with Maxime Bernier. Oh, there you have it.
Just quickly on that too. Scheer has some of those identity issues that are close to his heart that Brad Trost talks about and that Kellie Leitch talks about, but a much more appealing package.
John, what do you think?
Where to begin with these two? Well, first of all, I wouldn't by any means count out Lisa Raitt if she can convince people that she has proficiency in French, and that's going to be a big thing to convince. But she's a formidable candidate in her own right. I'm going to come in defense of Kellie Leitch because somebody has to. People complain that Ms. Leitch's candidacy is some kind of Trumpian attempt to take the Conservative Party down an anti-immigration rabbit hole. First of all, don't even begin to compare Kellie Leitch to Donald Trump. Don't even start. Don't even go there. It's obscene to even to suggest it, but others have. Secondly, this is an a leadership campaign. A campaign is supposed to be about ideas. Kellie Leitch, I don't happen to share her ideas emphatically, but Kellie Leitch has said we have to be more careful in immigration, we have to promote Canadian values, we have to watch who's coming into the country. And I think Andrew Scheer is going to try to surf a milder version of that. Meanwhile, Chris Alexander, who stood beside her, Kelly Leitch, on that horrible barbaric cultural practices announcement, has completely recanted, based himself and said, no, I want to bring 400,000 immigrants into this country. I want to get past the Liberals. It is all about winning over suburban immigrant voters in the 905. The Tories won the decade of power because they had them. They lost the election because they lost them. If they want to win, they have to get them back. So the real question to Kelly Leitch is, how in heaven's name do you hope to win the 905 with such a position? But it's a debate. Let's have the debate. This is a good thing.
But it's not an important debate, John. It's not a timely debate. It's not a pressing debate. Not compared to what the country's facing and what a lot of people are facing. It's a sideshow. Furthermore, I don't think Leitch or Chris Alexander, either of them, have recanted. They've essentially said, oh, the barbaric snitch line, that was handled badly. You know, we really kind of blew the weight. The communications on that. They're still defending themselves, and I think I really think Conservatives will be making a huge mistake if they choose either of them.
This is the thing that I was talking about. Like, you know, you have these sort of flashbang issues of identity and immigration and stuff like that. They play very, very well at the outset, because who can be against Canadian values? It's like saying you're against motherhood and apple pie. The Parti Québécois tried the exact same thing. The Conservatives tried the exact same thing. And the thing is that when you go into an election or anything like that, with that as your campaign horse, it falls flat on their face, because people have, yes, they're very concerned about Canadian values. They're more concerned about jobs, economy, environment, health. It's very simple.
We agree, but this is the Conservative Party, and there is a debate within the Conservative Party over this issue, and there has to be a healthy discussion about it during the leadership campaign. Otherwise, the party will be split, and there will be people going home saying that they never had a chance to have their voices heard. Kelly Leitch is giving them their voice, not to echo Donald Trump. I believe she'll be defeated. But
you made the comparison, John, not me.
I believe she'll be defeated, but I believe the Conservative Party has to have this debate openly and on the floor, or it's going to emerge as a split party.
Okay, very quickly, I just want to poll the panel. Do you think Aaron O'Toole, Chris Alexander have a chance?
No, I would say Aaron O'Toole is a very likable guy, but I don't think his French is up to scratch. And I'm sorry, who was the other one you mentioned? There's so many.
Chris Alexander.
Oh, no. I mean, that would be a big mistake. Basically, he's a guy looking for a job. That's how I see him. He started off, as you know, as I think he was 34, and he became Canada's ambassador to Afghanistan, and he had quite a distinguished career. He was considered a real kind of a possible successor to Stephen Harper when he first came in. But his main role, I think, as a minister was to say, yes, sir, how high? How high do you want me to jump? He was so slavishly loyal against his own better judgment, perhaps.
If I had to just quickly on Chris Alexander, he's positioning himself as sort of a red Tory. He is going to be forever tied to the handling of the refugee crisis, that snitch line. Red Tories are warm and fuzzy on identity issues. Joe Clark, one of the original Red Tories, who sort of came in with the Vietnamese boat people, 110,000 people coming into the country. I think he's going to have a very difficult time distinguishing himself from the Kelly Leitches and the Brad Trosses of this world.
And John, what do you think?
I don't think the Conservative Party leadership will be determined based on the views of the panelists on the CBC. I do think the party leadership will be determined on the basis of 338 ridings. The thing is weighted in such a way that every single riding in Canada gets an equal number of votes on the convention. Whoever has the money and the broad support to organize in 338 ridings, or the vast majority of them, wins it. So that means you need money, you need organizational ability, and you need to resonate with the grassroots of the party in Quebec, in Atlantic Canada, in Southern Ontario, in the 905, and in the West. Whoever does that wins.
All right, just before we go, I want to get your thoughts about the late Jim Prentice, who died a few days ago. The former Alberta Premier, federal cabinet minister, was killed along with 3 others in a plane crash in British Columbia on Thursday night. Tributes and condolences have been streaming in from across the country. John, I want to start with you. You tweeted, "Oh no," when you heard the news. Your reaction?
Yeah, it was very upsetting. you know, this is politics and journalism, but still, Jim Prentice was a good man who made mistakes politically, especially when he was Premier of Alberta. But he was the kind of guy that if you met on a train, you'd sit down beside him for the trip from Montreal up to Ottawa and talk, just because you wanted to talk. But and other journalists have offered similar, very moving tributes, especially my colleague Bob Fife. Yeah. I want to talk about something he actually did, though. Just the last thing he did as a federal minister. There was a huge mine proposal in British Columbia, the Fish Lake mine proposal, the Taseko mine proposal, that had the approval of the British Columbia government, that had the approval of the British Columbia caucus within the Conservative Party. Everybody knew that Stephen Harper wanted to go ahead, but the environmental assessment said it would be devastating. They were going to drain a lake and turn it into a tailing pond. And Jim Prentice said, no, I'm the environment minister. We don't do things like that. And he went against BC, and he went against his own caucus, and he vetoed the Taseko mine proposal, and that lake is still here because of him.
All right. Freelance journalist Susan Riley.
My thought is that, first of all, he got a bad rap. Prentice got a bad rap during the debate with Rachel Notley when he, remember, chided her for not being up on her math, and this was widely interpreted as being a sexist put-down. In my many encounters with Jim Prentice, he was neither sexist nor patronizing. I think that was an awkward mistake. Obviously, it cost him, but he was unfairly characterized, I think.
Okay. Marty?
Tough ministries that he had. He was, Aboriginal Affairs and Northern Development, 2006. Environment after that, two files that aren't exactly warm and dear to the Conservative, to Stephen Harper's Conservatives. Difficult job. The thing that came out with me was in that Bob Fife piece, which was really good. I recommend everybody read it. He talked about being haunted about not having done enough about First Nations. It's something I had not a clue that this was still in his mind, almost 10 years later, that he was the first sitting premier to visit, First Nations in northern Alberta, that sort of thing. And it not only speaks to the man's humanity, but also the difficulty of getting that file moved ahead in any government, be it Liberal, be it Conservative.
All right. Well, that's the note we'll end on today. Freelance columnist Susan Riley, John Ibbotson of the Globe and Mail, Martin Patrick Quinn of Maclean's. I want to thank you so much.
Thanks, Carol.
We'll see you next weekend.
Thanks, Carol.